Well, hello there. My job today is to lower the intellectual tone of the proceedings, and I feel like my life has been devoted to this very moment. But let's take a step back. TED, for those of you who weren't familiar with it till today, is an acronym, of course. It stands for Technology, Entertainment and Design. You may not be aware, however, that as well as being an acronym, it's also an abbreviation. Originally, the conference was actually called Edward, which stands for Elite Discussions with White Anglo-Rich Dudes. But of course, it's not now, it's TED. And this actually isn't really a TED. This is a TEDx, right? And you notice everyone stresses that. You know, the X, what does the X mean? It means it's an independently organised event. And to me, an X implies a Y. And I've been trying to work it out all day, and I think I've worked it out. Yeah. But, you know, I shouldn't really joke about the main TED. You know, because it's a movement and an event which garners a lot of support and love. There's a word for people who are into TED, isn't there? Was it? TEDophiles is the word, I think. And there's been a lot of TEDophilia today, I believe, from all of you and the people outside as well. But I think today has been a great event for Sydney, and it's been great to see TEDx coming here. The charge, of course, has been led by our wonderful host, Remo. Let's have a round of applause for Remo. And his magical carpet, in the form, of course, of the General Thinking logo. It is a great logo. I'm not exactly sure where he got the idea for it, but I think it works. I think it works. And it's certainly been a wonderful sight for all of us today to experience the interesting range of thoughts that we've had. We began with Michael Cathcart, whose meditation on national identity was so thoughtful and reflective that, quite frankly, I found it un-Australian. He talked about our veneration of dead explorers and how we've started to grow up. And I do think that's true. I mean, we have moved from necro-nationalism to what I like to call necro-gangsterism. And many thanks also to Mary Victor O'Reilly, whose beautiful address was very measured, and also provided us with a little bit of necro-nunnism, which I thought was fantastic. I never said it to be tasteful. But thanks also to all our Indigenous performers today. William Barton was spectacular. Yeah, let's hear it for William. Quite simply, the best electric guitar and didgeridoo hip-hop artist I have ever seen. But I think we can fairly say that, you know, our Indigenous brothers and sisters who have an amazing oral tradition have done Australia proud today, and hopefully this event has made some steps towards developing our oral tradition as well. But we moved on to Seb Chan, and isn't he cute? Wasn't Seb just fantastic? An inspiring story of how we can revitalise the idea of the museum. And I was convinced, so much so that I think that if Seb can do that, he might be able to revitalise another tired museum concept one day. I'd like to see it, don't you think? Then, of course, we had Michael Kirby and the God-botherers being at the door. And, of course, he was wrong. The God-botherers aren't at the door. They're inside as well. But everyone's welcome here. Justice Kirby, of course, is famous for his dissenting opinions. But I think you'll agree today that he was in the majority. and always writing the lead opinion for our better natures. We moved on to Greg Pickhaver, a rousing address about sport, reminding us that there is no I in team, although there is an I in Greg, weirdly enough. But I like to think of Greg as, really putting the power in the port power. One of my favourite expressions of the day, it's an idea as simple as the fork. And indeed it was. But, to be honest, I mean, it was an engaging and humorous idea, but I think, and I'm sure you'll agree, sporting clubs should do that. I would like to see, exercise bikes around. That's what I call thinking outside the corporate box, ladies and gentlemen. We moved on to a fascinating display by Brett Solomon and those amazing, disturbing scenes from Iraq. And of course, the powerful work that Brett's doing with Access Now to protect dissidents who are being spied on through their Gmail. And I think it's important that we remember the names of these activists. And while we acknowledge the work that Brett is doing to protect them, we should also say that they could do a bit better as well, to be fair. Should put a little bit more time into thinking about that. And then that fascinating statistic about election results and Facebook groups. Isn't that powerful? Think about the next Australian election. If we were to judge by Facebook groups who's going to win, wouldn't it be that Macquarie Bank guy who watched Miranda Kerr? Nigel Marsh, of course, came in to talk about work-life balance on a Saturday. And he told us, and I think it's a good point, it's a matter of perspective, these things. I mean, some people say that working long hours, is basically neglecting your spouse or partner, but I don't look at it that way. I think of it as spending quality time with your next partner. And most men think about sex every 10 seconds, but Nigel actually admits it during his speech. I think that's absolutely sex. Fantastic, fantastic. Then, of course, we had Jonathan Marshall talking about symbols. And you remember when he said, think about a nation that you don't particularly care about. I did you? Yeah. But I was reminded of Jonathan's discussion of symbols and metaphors during Sarah Jane Pell's talk. But then I thought, maybe that's just me, until she announced that the thing's called the Dominator. But anyway, Sarah Jane can dance and create beautiful art underwater, and I think the rest of the day showed that Sydney has plenty of people who can talk under it. Although I do believe that in Sydney, rather than performance artists, you're more likely to find accountants in the bottom of the harbour. Old reference. Rachel's talk on collaborative consumption was fantastic. And wasn't it interesting to hear about all the amazing businesses which are popping up and doing incredible work, bringing an economy to collaborative consumption. These are not Mickey Mouse businesses, well, maybe they are. But I thought it was a powerful message that technology is enabling trust between strangers. It's a good point. It's a shame it was made just after someone in Sydney was killed by a new Facebook friend, but still, the point remains. Then we, I didn't say to be tasteful. Then we had Andy Cooper talking about profit and solving poverty, which I thought was fascinating. And it was interesting to see all the people who've been helped by the sort of micro-insurance that Andy was talking about. And I think that it really told us something about the sort of people who can move from poverty to profit and back again. And then, of course, we moved on to Michael Wesley. who spoke passionately about the need for a lack of passion in politics in a talk that I like to subtitle Philip Ruddock for Prime Minister. Eliminating the passion in politics, I think you will agree, is a good thing, and as I cite as Exhibit A, this man, Troy Bruswell. There should not be that sort of passion in politics, ladies and gentlemen. Amanda Barnard introduced us to the amazing world of nanotechnology and talked about the way that this is being commercialised, which I think is very interesting, and it is true. Of course, you know, nanotechnology is entering our markets now. Apple, obviously, has even released a nano Steve Jobs recently, which I think is, what, too soon? I didn't say to be tasteful. But, you know, we did learn from Amanda that nano diamonds are a nano girl's best friend. And then we moved on to Rob, who showed us Mega Lego. Now, that was cool. I loved that, stacking the apartments. But some scary statistics, didn't you think? Doubling the size of Melbourne, which, of course, would quadruple the national smugness level. Ooh, could do with a drink up here, sorry. Then we got to Glenn Albrecht, and it had been a long day, ladies and gentlemen, but I personally reached a tipping point, round about the expression tipping points of the mind. I was with you for good and evil. Biophilia and necrophilia, I was less there. Made necro-nationalism seem like good family fun, it seemed to me. But maybe that's just because Glenn clearly doesn't want me to get my iPad on time. But it's been an interesting day, hasn't it, ladies and gentlemen? So much talk about the climate. Climate change has a psychology, Jonathan Marshall tells us, one that we're alienated from but need to come to terms with. John Giardini tells us that we shouldn't presume that the truth lies in the middle, and then Michael Cathcart tells us that it does lie in the middle. Possibly what we need is global hydrotherapy, ladies and gentlemen, or maybe just a wave, which is one of the only things which makes solastalgia easy to understand by comparison. But ladies and gentlemen, there is a party now to celebrate the end of the day. It's TEDxSydney, so I think you know what that means. But I think today has been a wonderful experience for everyone here. I've certainly enjoyed it. Have you guys enjoyed yourself? Yeah. And the lesson, it seems to me, is that the sum is greater than the parts, whether it's aquabatics or micro-insurance. And the start of that sum is coming. Whoop, sorry. There goes that, Jack. Forgot about that one. The start of that sum is you guys. And there you all are. I hope you've had a great day. Thank you very much.